One of the most central core components of a good role playing game is the character creation system. A lot of people enjoy using these as a way to make something totally new or recreate something familiar from a piece of media that they enjoy. Additionally, characters, good characters, aren't static things that are created and then just stay in that position. Most characters are created and then meant to grow and change, both in their personalities, in their interests, and in their physical capabilities over time to reflect the way that the stories impact them. In Fully Automated, the character system is uniquely valuable, I believe, because unlike in cyberpunk games and fantasy where most of the archetypes are already known, what makes a good solarpunk protagonist is a little bit more unfamiliar to people. If you check the prefab characters, you can see some that I think reflect a variety of existing archetypes and some that may be new to people. For instance, we have Pulsa, who is a fighter and a monk, and kind of someone commented that she reminded them of Princess Mononoke, which wasn't directly in mind when we were writing the character, but I think demonstrates that we captured something that is based in solarpunk and that you could see that sort of resemblance. Dusty is not entirely dissimilar to YT from Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, but whereas YT is an extreme loner, Dusty is similarly a badass, but very heavily connected into a community, and I think this is a fun character to play. We have Windrush, who is what we call an Aguamoto, which is basically the in-world term for a human that has been modified to be aquatic. She's a dock worker. She's a member of the International Union of Longshoremen. She's a proud union rep. She's part of a triad marriage. She met one of her partners on a trip to Mars. She's really been around and I think a complete badass. Also, she's a mom of two, and she teaches underwater hockey at one of her kids' schools. I think this really captures something that I want to see in my own life, which is if I had the freedom to work when I wanted and not when I didn't, I would definitely take a few months off or work a few days a week so that I could spend a few days, volunteering at my kid's school, right? And next we have Bite Scythe, who is a cynical elder hacker. One of the nice things about Bite Scythe is that she's not what we would call a kind of optimist. She's someone who lived through the last century and saw the transition away from capitalism. She was in federal prison for a few years. And so I think that this also reminds people that you can play characters in the setting that don't all have to be upbeat and positive. We have Miss Grant, who is described a little bit in the video, the play video, where one of the players plays as Miss Grant. Hiro Yasuki, also someone who gets played in the play videos. Father Muscles. Here's Mr. Winner, Mimi Nguyen, who is a chimp. Mimi Nguyen is a talking chimp. People have asked, why do you have talking animals in this game? And there's a lot of answers to that. One is that we tried to just kind of throw in as much variety in themes and tones and sci-fi concepts. And also because animal uplifting is a cool concept in science fiction, particularly when you want to really shine a light on the fact that we have sister species on this planet that we treat in unfathomably terrible ways. And I think it's very obvious to anyone who really thinks about it that our treatment of chimps, for instance, is going to be one of the things that we as a society look back on with the greatest disgust, the same way that we look back on the way that we treated human beings as disgusting as we have for much of our prehistory. And now we've got Hypebot 420, who is what's called a synth. It's basically a robot, but in this world, robot. You know, if you think about the original meaning of the word, which is servant or slave, robot's basically a slur. You don't really call synths robots. They had a whole uprising about this. Hypebot is a DJ and an investigator and an artist. Hypebot is not terribly smart, but it's a very fun character to play. There's a whole section describing how synths are made and how their personalities are developed. You can even become a synth who decides to get like bionic augmentations in the same way that a human can get turned into part machine. A synth can decide they want to be substantially organic, which is another story that exists throughout, you know, our canon of science fiction. We've got Mayhem, Joaquin Krikorian. Mayhem is an anarchist and MMA fighter and is a member of the Free Protectors Network. This is kind of like something like a loose network of like vigilantes with oversight. It's kind of like if you're into sort of the idea of like street level crime fighters like Spider-Man, but not the whole thin blue line, no accountability thing. It's a fun way to explore what it would look like to abolish policing and replace it with community interveners, particularly if you happen to want to explore a much more free-form version of that still has to treat people with an understanding that they'll be accountable for their actions. Ewan Reinhardt is a detective. You could check Ewan's character sheet. I think it's fun and weird. He's got a lot of angst. Again, this is valuable because people sometimes are like, where's the conflict? Ewan has an attraction to a human partner, and that is something that they have an enormous amount of stigma and shame about. It's kind of a complicated subject. I mean, it's not really sexual, but just being romantically attracted to someone outside their species is something that they feel deep, deep shame about. Whether you think that how you feel about that can only add more interest and flavor to it. We've got No Hound. I mean, journalists are already a great character type in any fiction, but in this one in particular, it just makes sense. No Hound is a teenage detective. We've got Voidstar, who's kind of like a hacker. Voidstar is actually based on a YouTuber, so I won't say more, but if you know who this is, leave a comment. John Giles is an investigator and hacker and a cyborg. John is an artisan repair specialist and I think makes a great partner to Voidstar. Honestly, the two of them is like kind of this hacker duo, one who's flashy and flamboyant and the other who's sort of quiet and reserved, strikes me as a great buddy pairing for a story. If you want to make your own characters, hopefully you'll find that the character creator offers an enormous amount of guidance in how to imagine people's upbringings in a world where everyone enters their adolescence with the kind of freedom to figure out what interests them. They can change those interests throughout their lives. People can be lifelong learners, and they can also get a lot of really cool augmentations, from brain-machine interfaces to ultraviolet vision to the ability to survive briefly in a vacuum, if that's something you really want to be able to do. So pick it up, check it out, and see if this character creation system offers something for you.